I now call to order, let's start here. Good evening, everyone. I call to order the January 27th, 2026 regularly scheduled board meeting of the Richland 2 Board of Trustees to order. On behalf of the Richland 2 Board of Trustees, I'd like to welcome you all to our regularly scheduled board meeting. And as always, we are always so grateful that you guys are continued to be engaged and support our students, our families, our staff, and community. So tonight, we're going to look forward to conducting the important business of the district and working together to ensure we remain a stellar school district committed to excellence in education. We appreciate your presence and participation, both in person and online, and we thank you for joining us this evening. Will you all now join with me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One snow day, and I almost forgot how to do this. All right, okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting has been published and made available publicly. May I please have a motion regarding the approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Trapp?
I move to approve the agenda for the January 27th, 2026 regular board meeting.
The motion has been made by Mr. Trapp. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Trapp and seconded by Ms. Washington to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, is that correct, Mr. Trapp?
Yes.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. Moving on to item 4.1, executive session. May I please have a motion to go into executive session?
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkin Scott?
I move to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing student appeals, employment recommendations, and certified releases, and a contractual matter regarding the transfer of property.
Okay, the motion has been made by Dr. Elkin Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Dr. Elkin Scott and seconded by Mr. Dennis to go into executive session. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, Dr. Elkin Scott, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. The board will now convene in executive session. May I have a motion to end executive session?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Washington?
I move that we end executive session at 6:21 p.m. and resume public session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Ms. Washington and seconded by Mr. Dennis to end executive session at 6:21 p.m. and resume public session. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, once that's on the screen, if Ms. Washington, you'll just confirm that it's correct. Okay, board members, please vote. The motion is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. We will now move to item 5.1. May I please have a motion regarding the approval of the consent agenda?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Washington?
I move to approve the consent agenda for the January 27, 2026 regular board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made by Ms. Washington and seconded by Dr. Elkin Scott. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, if we can just make sure that is correct on the screen. All right, board members, please vote. The motion is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. Okay, we will now move on to item 6.1, public participation. We have 2 people signed up to address the board. You will be given 3 minutes to address the board. To assist with timing, the lights on the table in front of us will change, and you'll see the colors go from green to yellow to red. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the light will turn yellow. When your time is up, the light will turn red, and you will hear an audible tone indicating your time to speak has expired. Before we begin, I want to remind you that our meetings are streamed live and recorded. According to policy BEDH, comments from the public should not include gossip, defamatory words, or abusive vulgar language. The policy also prohibits in public session any expression of personal complaints about individual school personnel or any other person connected with the school system. Specific student or personnel issues should be handled through the appropriate procedures as indicated in this district's policy. All right, so our first person is Joseph Kraft.
There we go. Thank you. My apologies. Good evening, Chair Mrs. Nash, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, and community members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dr. Joseph Kraft, and I currently teach 4th grade within Richland 2. I speak to you regarding the proposal to reduce the technology learning coach position within Richland 2. 2 years ago, I was concluding my 4th year at Columbia International University as a professor and transitioning back into the classroom. I was apprehensive, nervous, and honestly a little distraught about having to come back after being a teacher of teachers. Then I met our technology learning coach, our TLC. She led our new faculty training with an infectious enthusiasm that epitomized the vision of our school. She led our induction training, supported new staff in making them feel welcome, and reinforced the vision of our school. She supports our staff with incredible care, undeniable passion, and a heart that amplifies a lifelong beacon. She is the heart, soul, and drive behind what we do each day to support our students. She is the backbone of our faculty. In the remaining time, I want to share just a snapshot of what our TLC does every day to support our students and faculty. First, our TLC has done extensive coaching with new faculty and those returning. She has completed 14 coaching cycles this year alone and 5 ongoing to the state. The district for the 2025-26 year set goals in coaching, and this was spearheaded by a podcast presented by Dr. Moore on October 14th, 2025. Coaching has become a critical need within our district. Our TLC, above all else, has fulfilled this mission to our district. Just this year alone, she has met with 25 teachers and facilitated and led over 7 professional development opportunities. Removing her from her appointment at our school undermines everything that is written and spoken as it relates to the purpose and duty of our great instructional coaches. Second is culture. New teachers are able to learn the ropes from a veteran mentor who knows the school culture. New teachers are seen, heard, and supported as our TLC welcomes them into a new environment. She helps them to understand that they have a purpose and that they will be supported in the learning how to teach and to serve wholeheartedly. And this also relates to teacher retention. Teachers are supported and feel successful and capable because our TLC's coaching and unwavering support. Ask any teacher at our school who supports them and ensures their success, and our TLC's name will top the list. And all of this without saying the incredible work that she does in providing support with instructional technology. In her own words, upon hearing the news that she would not be returning to our school, she wrote to me in a text saying, "My teachers and their students are my purpose." I implore the school board, Dr. Moore, and the senior leadership team to reconsider the decision, if possible, and to ensure that our TLC stays assigned to her present placement. Not on rotation, for the current purposes and giftedness will not be served in their entirety, but to keep our TLC at her current placement permanently. Our families matter in Richland too, and our TLC is part of ours. Do not allow this incredible person, leader, and coach to be taken away from where she belongs. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Bailey Weist.
Good evening, Mrs. Nash, esteemed members of the board. I would like to start off by thanking you for giving me this opportunity to come before you to speak and to quickly introduce myself. My name is Celeste Wiest, and I'm a member of the Richland 2 community. More specifically, I'm a teacher who works to build and foster the community in our school, someone who sees firsthand how detrimental restructuring the technology learning coach position would be on our community. On paper, the TLC position seems straightforward, supporting students and staff in technology integration both in and out of the classroom. But at our school, our TLC is so much more than what is on paper. We call her the heart of our school, and there was never a more true statement than that. Part of our school motto is that we are beacons who light the way. And our TLC doesn't just light the way, she is the beacon who is always shining the brightest, even in the darkest of times. As a teacher, I can say with confidence that she has made me better at my job. She doesn't just fix problems, she anticipates needs and is quick to have a solution. She brings ideas to classrooms, including mine as a music teacher, that I might not have thought possible. Our TLC is an important part of our school community. Every member of the school community, both staff and students, know they can count on her when in need, not just in technology, but in any capacity. That is not the kind of relationship that can be built with someone split between 3 schools. That is something that takes time, trust, and consistency to build. But what truly sets her apart as an important part of our community is who she is as a person. Take away the job title, take away the layers of data, and you are left with one of the kindest, most positive, and encouraging people. Every school claims that they are like a family, but our school actually feels that way. And our TLC is a huge part of that. She knows us, each and every one of the members of our staff, every kid. She checks in on us and always has a positive thing to say. She knows the students. One student went as far to say, and I quote, "She is the best thing that ever happened to us. We love her so much." Restructuring this role may balance a spreadsheet, but it unbalances something far more fragile: trust, continuity, and excellence. When you reduce a role like this, you don't lose a percentage of support, you lose an integral part of our community. The question before us isn't whether we can afford this role, it's whether we can afford to lose a fundamental aspect of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we will now go on to item 7.0, voting on executive session items. Okay. Item 7.1, may I please have a motion regarding student appeals?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Williams?
Me.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made by Ms. Williams and seconded by Ms. Washington. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, if that motion, once it appears on the screen, is correct, let us know. Is that correct, Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Okay, board members, please vote. Okay, the vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. Is there another motion for student appeals?
Yes.
Okay,
I move to deny the appeal for student number 2.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Ms. Williams and seconded by Mr. Dennis. Is there any discussion? Okay, if there is no discussion and the motion appears correct on the screen, is that correct, Ms. Williams? Okay, board members, please vote. Okay, the vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. All right, moving on to item 7.2, employment recommendations and certified releases. May I please have a motion regarding employment recommendations and certified releases?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Trapp?
I move to approve the employment recommendations and certified releases as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made by Mr. Trapp and seconded by Dr. Elkins Scott. Is there any discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, Mr. Trapp, is your motion correct on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, board members, please vote. Okay, the vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 7.3, contractual matter regarding the transfer of property. May I please have a motion on the contractual matter regarding the transfer of property?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Dennis?
I move that we authorize the superintendent to proceed with the property transactions discussed in executive session to sell portions of the district property to the South Carolina Department of Transportation for road improvements, right-of-way expansion, and sidewalk expansion. The properties are portions of TMS R25 700-02-14 Pontiac Elementary, TMS R1691-4-00 or -01-01 Richland Northeast, with all documents being made available to the public once the transactions have been completed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Dennis and seconded by Ms. Williams. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Dennis, you have the job of reading that to make sure it is correct.
That is correct.
Okay, board members, please vote. Okay, the vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. We will now move on to items 8.0, unfinished business, no action requested. This agenda item is, we're going to do the update, the 2026-2027 strategic resource alignment. This agenda item in this section is an update on the 2026-2027 strategic resource alignment. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, board members, we're here to provide you with another update on our Strategic Resource Alignment Initiative. The past few months have involved working with our new staffing model that will guide the district's future. So as you are aware, the main focus of this effort has been on examining student-teacher ratios and staffing allocations for other positions, which will be used to staff our schools for next year. Board members, this work is essential to our ongoing success because it is unclear how school choice options such as homeschooling, private schools, charter schools will affect the district next year. For this work, we have set the following goals. The first goal is to enhance student experiences and outcomes. The second goal is to ensure equity in resource allocation and opportunities. And the third goal is to improve operational efficiency. So I will now turn it over to Dr. Foster to discuss the student-teacher ratios.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Good evening, board members. I hope everybody's having a great evening. And again, happy Board Appreciation Month. And thank you for all the things that you do to support our schools and our students and families as well. As Dr. Moore shared with you, this is an update on our strategic resource alignment initiative that we have been engaged in for several months as we're trying to make sure that we're right-sizing our schools for the upcoming school year. Dr. Moore just shared with you the district goals, and our district goals are the 3 that we set for this work. And we have tried to stay to those 3 goals as we have engaged in this work over the last few months. And we can move to the next slide. Thank you. I think it's important to talk about again, just so that everybody can just continue to put this in the forefront of our minds as we're thinking about this work. We do have risk factors and scenarios that are driving the need for us to develop new staffing standards for our district. Our current staffing standards, for 2 reasons, have not been reviewed since about 2015 is what we are kind of estimating based on some data that we have. And then, of course, we have the potential impact of just all of the school choice options that are available to families now. So if we look at our risk factors and scenarios, we do have one that is our enrollment volatility. We know that we do have 3 charter schools that are expected to open in the district within the next school year. We are seeing demographic shifts. Planning will talk some about those demographic shifts in their presentation to you shortly and how they're impacting our district. Student needs are intensifying. Our students are coming to our schools with a variety of needs that we're having to meet as faculty and staff at the schools as well as district level. And some of those are creating budget constraints for our district as well. With limited resources and just competing priorities, we are still faced with trying to make sure we have enough funding to be able to cover all of the things that are necessary to operate our school district for the students that will be here with us next year. One of the other important factors that are driving some of this is just the instructional evolution. We know that we have a variety of teachers in our buildings now, and as we are seeing coaching take off in our schools, the need to ensure that we continue to provide that coaching opportunity for our faculty and staff is just essential. And so, of course, that is what prompted the shift with us in the transition of our TLCs. And so that is one of the things that I think is important to consider as to why that it was the need for more coaching in our schools and still being able to address and have opportunities there to cover some of the technology things that are still left behind from them. We won't be able to cover all of them, but technology, working with the technology department, we will try to get most of them covered for the essential functions. Equity imperative is ensuring that every student, regardless of if they're in the south or the north side of our district, that they have the same resources and opportunities. And then one that's important and central to my work is the workforce challenges that we're facing. This is not new to our district. We have continued to see challenges with teacher recruitment and retention, and so we're really wanting to work and focus a lot of efforts there because we're seeing a variety of teachers entering our classrooms now. We have alternative certified teachers, and those are teachers who may they have a 4-year college degree, but they did not go to school to become a teacher, so they're not have some of the skills that are needed for teachers that actually participated in a teacher education program. And so we're needing to ensure that they have the resources that they need, as well as we're having to continue with international teachers. We probably won't have as many this year, but we still do have international teachers that do need additional support in our schools. And then just continuing to just look at the dynamics of the teaching force. And of course, we're wanting to make sure that we address the burnout prevention as much as possible with our teachers as well, and working with our schools to try to do that. And the last thing with workforce challenges is just role clarification. We have multiple positions in our district. We have certified, we have classified positions, and there is a need to make sure that we have clarity in their roles at all levels. As you're aware, we've shared this with you before, the impact of the enrollment and funding future challenges for our district. This is the information that we received from the State Department of Education back in September, I think, when we received that information, and it's estimating that 3,700 students will be attending one of the 3 charter schools that will be opening in our district. We do know that All of those students are not going to come from Richland 2 because charter schools, of course, are open to any students in South Carolina. So we do have families that may come from other charter, they may be in other charter options, they may be in private school now, or other districts that may fill some of those slots as well. But we do know some of those students will come from Richland 2, unfortunately. And so if we look at Legacy, which is the one that I've been looking at the most because I pass by it every day on my way to work, they are building a new building on Two Notch Road, right behind the Goodwill on Two Notch, and they will have 150 kindergarten students, 660 elementary students, and 190 middle school students for a total of 1,000 students. We don't know exactly what percentage of those students will be coming from Richland 2, but we can venture to say that some of them will, and when they decide to attend Legacy versus one of our schools, the funding that comes along with that student will go with them to that charter school, impacting our financial future related to student enrollment. So the impact that we are estimating on based on the impact of enrollment and funding future challenge is, one, before challenges, we currently received this year, $178 million from the state as their portion to help fund our education initiatives here in Richland 2. With charters, we are seeing a reduction dependent upon the number of students that attend the charter schools, but a potential reduction to $154 million, which could be a reduction of approximately $25 million. And so our goal now is to ensure that as we are anticipating a reduction in our student enrollment, that we right-size our schools to meet the potential, one, to staff our schools appropriately, but also to meet the potential shortfall in revenue. And so what we've done or accomplished so far is our progress to date is that we have conducted the current state audits. I think we shared with you that that was an essential function of our work, is to make sure that we had a handle on everyone who was in our buildings, what their role was, and aligning what we call them in HR and what the principals call them at their schools, and making sure that we have clarity in those positions. So we've conducted those in all of our schools and locations. Research current trends regarding staff and allocations. I've shared some of that with you. I've shared it with principals. We've looked at several districts that have very comparable sizes to ours, just as we always do. We've looked at Beaufort, we've looked at Greenville, we looked at Horry, and looked at to see how they're staffing their schools, as well as Aiken. So with some of the schools that we followed. We've conducted conducted future state meetings, and those future state meetings were held with principals, and some of those discussions were what would be the attributes of the positions that you would need at your school to ensure that you're able to manage your school and meet your overall goals and objectives that you're setting. And so that has been conducted, and we've utilized that information to develop, one, our staffing ratios for student teacher, but also to look at our other positions that staff our schools as well. And so the next step is we finalized the recommendations for student teacher ratios by grade level and poverty levels. I'll share that with you because it is a change from what we shared with you before based on some of the discussions that we've had with stakeholders. And then we've met with core team and stakeholder groups. That has been an ongoing process that Dr. Moore has engaged in as well. So we're excited to have those discussions. And that's just another cross-section of our stakeholders to try to get more feedback. So it has not just come from HR. I mean, I've been the driving force behind it, but it's been a collaborative effort and sharing that responsibilities with others as well. And we've simulated and refined the staffing models. Working with planning, we've put some scenarios in place. We've come back. They're probably not my friends right now, but we have finally come to a consensus on where we're going to be with our staffing model. And so I'm going to share that with you now using our simulation from Brilliant Elementary. But just so that you have the reference again, our current staffing guidelines, if we look at where we're staffing now, this is across the board from kindergarten through 5th grade, from 0% poverty to 80% poverty, the range of students, student-teacher ratios for a typical elementary school would be 22 to 18, just depending on their poverty level. And remember, we talked about wanting to still consider that equity factor in there, and knowing that schools that have higher levels of poverty have a need for additional resources. The next slide would be our middle school, and they have a very similar model to the high school. They have an identical model to the high school, and we currently staff those schools based on a ratio, based on their poverty level, 20 to 1 to 17.5 to 1. So you'll see in our new model, there are some slight adjustments in those, and I do say they're slight, so they're not huge deviations as we had shared with you before, because we did hear your concerns as well. Particularly, I think when we shared the fifth grade, I heard gasp, like when we said that fifth grade would have 24 in a class. We heard that gasp, and so we went back and made adjustments on that as well. So we'll go to the next slide, and we'll visit Brilliant Elementary. Well, no, we'll visit our recommended ratios first. So we divided it into a three-tier model. Our three-tier model is we have lower poverty schools at 0 to 54. Significant poverty schools would be 55 to 74%, and then a higher poverty school would be 75 to 100%. And the reason why we decided to go into that model is easier for us to share and to explain, as well as it still considers the level of poverty, because all of our schools have some level of poverty in them. We're kind of like a bell curve if you look at all of our schools where they're currently at. So this is where we're staffing them at, planning to staff them for the 26-27 school year. First, kindergarten, lower poverty would be 22 to 1, significant would be 20 to 1, and then higher poverty would be 18.5 to 1. First through third would be 21 to 1, 19 to 1 for significant poverty, and 17.5 for higher poverty. And fourth through fifth grade would be 23 to 1 for lower poverty, 20 to 1 for higher significant poverty, and 19.5 to 1 for higher poverty. And remember, at the elementary school, we're actually using those numbers to staff the classrooms per grade level. So that's the number of FTEs that they would have per grade level. If they had, I'll use a quick number, kindergarten at significant poverty, if they had actually 100 students, they would have 5 FTEs for that grade level. So remember, we're just staffing the grade levels at elementary. It gets a little bit more complicated when we get to middle and high, because when you look at the middle in 6 through 8, we're saying lower poverty is 19.5 to 1, significant is 18.5 to 1, and 17.5 to 1 is higher poverty. When we're staffing at the middle level, that means that we're using that number to staff their core classrooms as well as their related arts or fine arts classes. So the goal is to make sure that we're maintaining that ratio across as much as possible with our core classes, and working with principals to see where where it would be with the actual related art classes. But the goal has been working with academics as well as with HR and magnet director as well, so that we can try to adjust those. We had a first discussion with a principal today, which was a good discussion, but there are some things that we are continuing to work on with that level. And then high school would be the same, 19.5 to 1, 18.5 to 1 for significant, and 17.5 to 1 for a higher poverty school. And again, those are the total number of FTEs would be calculated by the number of students at that school to get their total FTEs. And then the elementary centers will have 18 to 1 in all of their grade levels for CFA, and then CFI and CFK North would have 22 to 1, and that's a pretty standard number that we have now. So now I'm going to just briefly visit Brilliant Elementary. This is a school that we visited for the last times that we've talked about this, and it's just been a good simulation. Please note that this is not a school currently in Richland 2. It's my school that I would call, if I had created the elementary school, it'd be Brilliant Elementary. So Brilliant Elementary has a 57% poverty level. So that means that it is a significant school. It is a significant school. We're testing you to make sure you're listening to me. It's a significant school. So significant school, and that currently has a student enrollment of 635 students. So if we're using our current staffing ratios of 19.5 across the board, because that poverty level on the previous, the current one that we're using is 19.5, they would currently have 5 kindergarten teachers, 6 teachers through 1st through 5th grade, for a total of 35 FTEs. There's no reduction when we apply the new formula there. So in kindergarten, with a significant school, they would have 20 students, and they would have actually 4.4 would be their actual allocation, but you can't have a fraction of a teacher or part of a teacher, so that would round up. Anything that's above 0.3 or higher, we're rounding. Please don't hold me to those rounding guidelines. They were developed by Marshall and Franklin. So they were developed by Dr. Franklin. And so please don't hold me to the 0.3, but 0.3 or higher would definitely allow the schools to have a additional FTE. So when you're looking at kindergarten where it's a 0.4, that rounds up to 5 FTEs. Where you have a 5.3 in first grade, that rounds up to 6 FTEs. So this school, as it currently for this year, would still have 35 FTEs if we applied the new formula, the new staffing guideline formulas this year. But if we move forward to next year, as planning will share with you shortly about what our planning enrollments what our enrollment looks like for next year based on charters or other options that families have, I'm estimating that my school, which had 635 this year, is only going to have 531 students next year. Okay? So with 531 students, we know that we're going to have a reduction in FTEs because the students are not there, so we're not going to have the educator there if the students are not. So when we're looking at current staffing, if we applied our current staffing guidelines, it would be 19.5 across the board, and that means that they would have 29 FTEs. So you would see a reduction pretty much at each grade level because in this school they lost students equally across grade levels, which that doesn't happen in elementary schools. They don't leave like that. But this is how this is my simulation, so this is how they ended up leaving it at Brilliant Elementary. Then the recommended guidelines, if we were to adjust those, and we would do 20 at kindergarten, 19 at first through third, and 21 at fourth and fifth, we would still end up with 29 FTEs for that year. So there would be no reduction in the number of FTEs besides just the loss of students. Okay, in the previous models I think we shared with you, there was a other slight deviation because we were using higher ratios. But after conversations with our teacher forum, as well as with our classified forum, as well as with the core team, and as well as with principals, we decided to adjust those so that we would have less of an impact on the schools and their FTE allocations. So the next slide is just a quick summary of this, and it just shows you that basically the school maintained all of their current staffing. The only reduction that they had was across because of teacher, the reductions in students. So you may ask, well, how are you going to go about absorbing 6 FTEs from a school? So just so you can kind of know what that process has looked like, we're trying to do everything that may happen through attrition. And that's why I can't give you a solid number now to say, this is the reduction of FTEs that we're going to see across the board. We're working closely with principals. Remember, we did our letters of intent back in December. That gave us an indication of those faculty members or staff members who have already made a decision that they're going to be retiring or leaving the district for other reasons. So we really can't give you how the impact on a school yet until we have deeper conversations with principals. And so I wanted you to be aware that our goals are to work through attrition. That typically will get us there because in a normal school year, we have about 300 teachers that leave us and we hire 300 teachers. So we know that we're going to have some attrition. We'll also look at those that are retiring. We'll look at those that are wanting to be transferred to another school. So for example, if Brilliant Elementary was to have a reduction of 6 teachers, let's say that 4 teachers said that they wanted to leave, they were going to retire or leave the district, and only that means we have 2. So if we have 2 that says, hey, I would like to work at Round Top Elementary School, then we would work to transfer those there. So we're not working where we're trying to have any staff members that are losing their actual jobs. We are trying to do everything through normal attrition methods. Okay, so I just wanted to give you that. And next thing is I'm going to share with you where we are with our next steps because there's still a lot to do in this work. Finalizing our staffing model for other positions, we've only talked about teachers with you. There's a lot of other positions out there that support our schools. So we're finalizing those models so that we can share them with you at our next board meeting. as well as we're conducting follow-up discussions as needed. A lot of ongoing discussions are happening. The team is really working and pulling together and meeting with principals, are coming and sharing things, and we're talking with them. And then determining staffing needs based on enrollment projections. You're going to get an update from enrollment projections now. Once we have all of that information, then we're able to turn it into and work with principals on what their staffing will look like for the upcoming year. We're in the process of beginning our staffing meetings with principals in February, because we have to have that information finalized for you before our first board meeting in April. And so we're working on those with staffing meetings with principals. And then just as we're continuing to implement this, it's ongoing monitoring and adjustments and alignments as needed. And of course, sharing information with you as well as we go through this process. And I'll refer it back to Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Dr. Foster.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, before we open it up for questions, I just want to go over a few more points that Dr. Foster talked about. Please keep in mind that, as you know, Board, I know you're aware of this, but the public may not be aware. We did have a decline in enrollment this year, and that decline was addressed through district-level reductions that we made throughout this year. We did have about a $5 to $6 million gap, and the board did receive an action plan from me on how we were doing that. We did not go back to schools to ask them to make any adjustments to their budgets. That was taken out of district funds, district programs, and district positions that became available that we did not fill. And so the public needs to understand that. I want to also just, for the public's sake, you may not understand the funding model that the state uses, which is called aid to classrooms. That funding model is based strictly on the number of students and the number of teachers. It does not include any additional support personnel in that building. That could be administrators, related arts, teaching assistants. None of that, or that cost, is included in the funding model for aid to classroom, which is where that $25 million budget reduction that Dr. Foster shared would be impacted. So I want to be very clear that these figures are data-driven and fiscally responsible, reflecting both current realities and forward-looking financial planning. And while the approach may be complex and difficult to understand at first, please understand that it is designed to protect the district's long-term financial health and stability. We have put a lot of time and effort into this, and we really would like to give the board very concrete numbers that we could all count on. Unfortunately, we cannot do that. And even as you're going to hear tonight with the projections from our operations department, the reality is we will not know where we are at until the first 10 days of school, like we found out this year. And so I need people to understand that this plan balances student enrollment trends, staff compensation, and operational sustainability to ensure that the district remains strong moving forward, and we are still providing the excellent education to the students that we have a privilege to educate. And with that, I'll open it up to the board for any questions.
Okay, board members, does anyone have any questions? Oh, Ms. Porter?
Thank you. Need to speak to the principal of Brilliant Elementary. I want to propose a scenario, because I don't know if this will operate the same way or if this is another change. So say that you have, you as a principal want to hire a math coach to add to your building, a need that you see in your building. And so does that mean that you would need to pull that position from these numbers here to build a position for a math coach in your building?
Very good question, and I'll give my philosophy, and then Dr. Moore can share
Okay.
hers. My goal and what I am working to accomplish for our district is consistency across our schools. We have, and through this process, we have uncovered a lot of inconsistencies at our
Correct.
school. So we have not been consistently applying guidelines. And so we do have some inequities in schools where somebody may have a a math coach that they used the FTE and they the students didn't show up at the school, so they used the FTE in another way. Our goal is to monitor student enrollment throughout the process so that if there is this year, I'll go back to this year. This year, we did have locations that were overstaffed because of the enrollment projections and student demographic movements, shifts across the district. So, for example, we had one school that lost a first grade teacher. Well, we didn't replace that first grade teacher because they had enough space in their other classrooms for them to absorb that without having an over amount of students in the classroom. Still had a good amount, less than 17 kids in a classroom, which is a good goal for us to maintain. In prior years, the school probably would have started out with 3 classrooms and had used that teacher for another purpose. We're trying to eliminate that for the upcoming year as much as possible, where we're using the staff for what we designated for. And, you know, when we met with principals, of course, they would like to have more instructional coaching at their schools, but just currently where we're at, that is not that is something that we're not able to add to this until we really know what the reality of charter schools is going to be for our district. So in my view is for everybody to get to a consistent level, and then for Dr. Moore or academics to share if there needs to be adjustments based on instructional needs at the school.
Thank you. And I have an additional question if I can ask. That is, so you also mentioned for the middle school numbers, and I think this is important because people will come back to this meeting and rewatch it to have clarity. So for middle school, and you somewhat hinted to this, it's a little bit harder to calculate.
It is.
I just want to state, and maybe if you could confirm, that with our different leveled courses, that changes things as well, as you may have a leveled course that may have a smaller number than what was presented. So for a higher poverty school, it's 17.5 to 1, but there may be a leveled course that has 15 kids, but then an honors or an accelerated class that may have 25, and we're not married to this number when it comes to the middle school because of the different levels.
Right, so that number at the middle school is not an actual class size ratio.
Right.
That is a staffing ratio for the school. So for example, if a school had, and of course I'm not planning definitely will share this a little bit more. I'm just going by some knowledge that I gained today as we were working with a middle school principal. So a middle school principal that we met with today currently has 63 FTEs at her building, okay? With those 63 FTEs, that is staffing her 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and her related arts based on her allocation. But her allocation is based on that number of students that she was given based on that ratio that we used for 6th, 7th, and 8th. But it is just a staffing ratio more than a class size ratio there. So there will be some variations in class size. It's not as concrete as it is at the elementary level.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair.
Dr. Elkin Scott.
Yes, I do have just a couple questions. If we could go to slide number 5, please, and that's the impact of enrollment and funding future challenge, right there. Can you explain how did you guys come up with how many students that you were projecting that will go to these charter schools? That's the first question, and then I have something else.
So I'm going to defer that question to planning, and they're going to share that in their presentation. This information is this information was shared with us from the State Department. So we requested this information from the State Department, and they're going to talk to you about the impact that we're expected to see in the district.
Okay, you answered my question.
Okay, good.
But there's a second part that you guys may want to consider for the public and people watching, because there's money tied to the number of students you have here. And what I would like to have seen, and I think that would have probably helped people to truly understand, is how much money will impact the school district with these amount of students actually leaving us. And then you should have, or would I guess planning, could have talked about the fact that the loss of this money, and then the students decide that they don't like the school, the parents decide they don't like, and then they return back, but the money is not returning back with them. So in the future, when you guys do this, I would love to see the money tied to this, just so people can really understand the loss that we would lose, and then the students return back without the money. But thank you, you answered the question
Yes, ma'am.
earlier.
And Dr. Scott, Matthew, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, that one. So that is the estimate that has been provided by business services that we are basing any reduction on, is trying to make sure that we are able to absorb a $25 million reduction. And Dr. Moore, if you want to share more about that, but that is our estimated
And that
reduction.
would be the estimate, Dr. Scott. And you're absolutely correct in the way you've explained it. With that many students leaving us, we would anticipate a $25 million reduction in our budget, because students are the factor that is used for the funding. And yes, if the student leaves us and then decides to come back to us at the end of the first 9 weeks, that money does not follow the student back to us. And so that does still mean that we are dealing with a $20 to $25 million budget reduction that we have to take in consideration. And I'll go back just real quick to one of the points that Ms. Porter brought up around the math coach. Ms. Porter, that brilliant elementary would receive support from the district office. Now, does the district office have a person that can go out to every school every day? No, but we would have a schedule of how we can go out and support. If the school is a Title I school and has sufficient funds in their Title I, the practice would be they could look at possibly hiring a math coach for their school. But as you know, the math coaches or math people in general are very hard to find. We've, across the nation, have struggled in that area, and but we continue to look to ensure that we do have highly qualified math teachers at each one of our schools.
Ms. Porter, I can get the button.
Yes, so this is more so just to speak to my colleagues. With what Dr. Moore just stated, this may be something that we can bring up legislatively as well, as an outlier conversation for our charter schools to make it so, because I'm thinking about our students who go to these schools and they have their IEP meetings and 504 meetings, et cetera. That usually doesn't always happen right away, and before accepting, I think that there should be some sort of rules or guidelines that you can't tell a student that they can no longer attend a school because you can't meet their needs after you've already accepted them, and then they return to the public school after that, and that may not happen until after the first 9 weeks. I think that there's something in there that we should be able to have a conversation about, so that they follow certain guidelines, so that is not something that regularly occurs, because I do think that could affect our special needs population greatly, and we work really hard to try to plan for those teachers and making sure that they have the tools that they need. So this is just for my colleagues and I, as we have conversations with different folks in legislation.
Okay. Anything else on that? Oh, Mr. Dennis?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. You know, when I have been digging into this stuff a lot lately, looking through our laws and how the funding model is, and I tell you the truth, the funding model is about as useful as the letter A trying to spell win. It just don't work. So, you know, when we're talking to our state legislators and federal legislators, I think the biggest conversation we need to have is how to fix it. And how to fix it's not a patchwork, it's a new way forward. Like, we got to come up with a better funding models, basically like hold harmless based off the prior year. I think that would be one of the greatest things. So definitely, I've been advocating for that on the legislative portion. And anybody's watching this, you know, teachers, parents, you should also be reaching out as well, because, this has a lot. I mean, we cannot stick our heads in the sand and wait for this to blow over. This is coming. It's going to happen. How we weather it so that we can protect our students and our staff and our employees like that, that's the hard stuff that's coming forward. And it's kind of surreal when you look at it, especially how laws have been passed in the past. So I would definitely highly suggest everybody to get out there, get involved with your legislators, send out, emails, calls. It's got to be fixed. I mean, hearing everything we're doing is above and beyond what a lot of other people are doing across. And this isn't just in South Carolina. This is nationwide. A lot of them are just kind of sticking their head in the sand, and I think that's going to turn around and bite them pretty bad. And I'm glad that this board is being proactive with it. So that's a good thing. And the administration is proactive as well. So thank you all very much for all the hard work.
Ms. Williams?
All right, I'm gonna keep this very short. I just want to say, again, thank you so much. Mine is more like kudos to your team for being able to hear what the teachers had to say, what the principals had to say, and coming back to revise it, because that's what makes the biggest difference in making it work, and also with retention, because they know that your office and your staff hear what they're trying to say, and it makes their job easier. So again, thank you for opening it up, hearing the oohs and ahs and the hums, and then coming back and saying, hey, we need to revisit this. We really appreciate that, because now you have a way that teachers feel heard, principals feel heard, and then you're helping with retention. Again, thank you.
Thank you. It's y'all Franklin, after he steps out of his tracksuit, so different person, brand new. Thank you for that presentation. All right. Okay, we're now going to move on to 9.0. This is where we have new business, no action requested. Item 9.1, discussion policy BE board meetings. This agenda items in this section is a discussion on policy BE board meetings. And before I hand it over to Dr. Moore, I express, just so you guys know what this is in regards to for the board. I think I talked about it a little bit just in an email so people know, is we had our consultant here, I guess that was earlier this month, who's been working with us on trying to just get as much work done as we possibly can in the most efficient manner. And so this is going to be looking at, in some ways, how we can do that. All right, Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call Dr. Marshalyn Franklin, our deputy superintendent, to come to the board to present policy BE. And maybe she'll talk about Dr. Foster in her presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Madam Chair, members of the board, the policy before you, policy BE, specifies the types of meetings the board conducts. As it relates to regular board meetings, it also specifies when those meetings occur. And I believe out of a conversation at the last board workshop, the board has a desire to have a discussion about possibly making some changes to the cadence of their meetings. And so I stand ready to listen to your discussion, take some notes, and in the event that there is consensus that we make some changes, district administration will go back and draft a revision of the policy to bring back before you for first and second reading. Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'll start. One of the things that Mr. Simmons was suggesting is about, we have currently right now, because we're doing a little bit of new way of work, as far as the public goes, you probably have seen some of that, but being able to give whoever is chair and board the more of a freedom to decide on how that is. And right now, our policy is, 2 board meetings, and how many is it per year? I forgot. Yeah, how many meetings and how many workshops can we have per year? How many?
There isn't a limit, there isn't a maximum number.
Okay, so that's
There's a
what I was
maximum
gonna
number
say.
for
Okay,
pay
perfect.
purposes, yes, but you can have as many
Okay,
as you
perfect. So we can have as many as one, but we want to cut that down as far as like how much time we are able to spend. So the suggestion was, if there was a way to do, and we've kind of done some of that, but to do our one business meeting, which would be a meeting just like this, The second meeting of the month would be, we would still handle our normal work business, which would be, any of the executive session items, student appeals, public participation. And then after that, we would adjourn and then go into workshop style where we have the work with our committees and then bring information and have more of a work environment where we're working with administration. So that was the suggestion. Would love to hear how we can make that better or any thoughts around that, feedback, all that good stuff. Board.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkin Scott.
I will just say, I really like the idea. Of course, we tried to do this a few years ago, and we just didn't have enough support to do it. But I think it's really beneficial, and not only that, it saves a whole lot of time with having so many extra meetings and committee meetings when we can all get it done during board meetings. So I'm glad to see that you revisited this because it didn't work for me. And sometimes it works better when it comes from different people. So I do appreciate that, and hopefully it will pass. Thank you.
Well, and I think, I heard you when you said it in the past, and so we, of course, would love support around that, just because I do think, whoever's chair after me and therefore, even if it's written in a way that we can make it to where you can decide whether if that's what you want to do going forward. So that's kind of where we're thinking. If you don't have any thoughts on feedback tonight, we'd love to have feedback to make sure that we tighten this up to where it fits for everybody and in the future going forward. Anybody have any thoughts or comments?
Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Dennis?
Yeah, I like how this is going. I agree with y'all on this, and I think it also adds a level of transparency also with the public so that they can actually see what we're doing. They can come into these sessions, they can see it being done right there in real time instead of me sitting at my desk at home by myself coming up with this. And that really gives us that transparency and probably gives us a better way of coming up with things because we're getting more input from different board members. So I wholeheartedly support it.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things, and we've talked about this in the past too, is that it allows board members to have in-depth conversations about and questions because, I don't know if the public knows this, but most of the time we only get to speak in here. And so we don't actually get to have a conversation. And rather than having you all stay for long periods of time, this gives us the opportunity for you to be here, part of the conversation if you choose online or in person, but also see us work and then being able to work with administration and give us that cohesiveness. And and it's all aligned around the board goals, the strategic plan, and see how that works well together. So this has been a culmination of thoughts that we've had from the wisdom of board members that we've had here. And so, so just looking forward to hearing your feedback on that. Oh, Ms. Porter, do you have something you want to add?
I just also wanted to add that I think this will be helpful also with the pool on staff, and also pulling from their expertise when we need thoughts behind where our ideas are coming from, and they tend to add a lot to that conversation based on their experience. The past couple of months where we've had workshops, I will say they've been beneficial, and we've learned a lot, and we were able to get a lot more accomplished, with having them at the table. So, thank you.
So then, just going forward, if everybody will send their thoughts to our policy committee, who's been killing it, by the way, in a good way. If you could send all your thoughts and feedback on how we can tighten this up, and make it to where it works for everybody for now and going forward, we'd appreciate that. And then, okay, Ms. Washington said, can we get it from y'all by next Tuesday? Is that possible? Oh, because we do need it for first reading. Is that possible, everybody? Ms. Porter?
Can our comments that we've made today suffice for some of? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Just if you had anything new, like tweaking, like you probably know because you've been on the board for, you could be able to give us some feedback on whatever we come up with. All right.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes,
one thing.
Mr. Trapp.
I think it might be beneficial for us to perhaps come up with a more specific definition in our policy
Okay.
of what a regular board meeting is, because we do have a definition for
Right.
things like work sessions. If we're going to incorporate some of the aspects of a work session into a regular board meeting, I think it would be helpful if the definition for a regular board meeting was tweaked a little bit.
Okay, thank you. And if you have some thoughts on that, Mr. Trapp, because you do read these quite a bit, if you could, yes, ponder on it and get back to us. All right. Oh, yeah, send it to the policy committee. Don't send it to us. Ms. Washington will be the recipient of that. And then you'll send out something just so everybody knows what all the feedback was? Okay, so everybody will get the feedback, and then we'll go from there. All right, so that
Madam
is.
Chair?
Oh, yes.
You said Tuesday?
Yes,
Okay, I'm
please.
making sure I'm writing my notes down right.
Yes, please. Thank y'all. Okay, all right, so now we're moving on to item 9.2, 2026-2027 projected enrollment. We've got our duo here. This agenda item is the section of report on enrollment projections process. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you already see, Mr. Anderson is there, and our Senior Chief of Operations, Mr. Hutton, is also there. But I want to take a moment before we start into our presentation, and I give my talking points, which Mr. Anderson will say I've covered most of what he wants to talk about. But I want to introduce to the board and to the public our new Director of Planning, Executive Director of Planning and Operations to the board, and that is Mr. Emmanuel Myers. Many of you will stand up, please. And just so that, I know the board is very familiar with this, but the public may not, to have this position, we took existing positions that were not filled and were not going to be filled because we didn't need that service anymore, collapsed some of those positions to create this position, which is one that we do need, and we have deleted or removed those other positions. Now, why did we need this position that Mr. Myers is in? Because right now, operations has over 500 people in that one department. And looking at span of control and leadership, they needed a second person, so the work has been divided between our chief, Mr. Anderson, and our executive director, Mr. Myers. And so, welcome, Mr. Myers. He now gets to come to meetings, to board meetings. He's so excited. He's so excited. So before Mr. Anderson gets started, I just want to remind the board of a few things, and really the public. If you remember, we reviewed our methodology of how we do our student projections for the next year. The main methodology used, again, is cohort survival, and Mr. Anderson walked us through that, but just so that everybody is aware, this methodology really is informed by historical student enrollment data. So it includes new housing starts, birth rates, choice options, both internal and external. And if you remember what Mr. Anderson shared during our last meeting, the addition of charter schools has made this extremely difficult for us. But the team, and a great team, has tried to incorporate this impact based on projected charter school enrollment numbers, which we received, as Dr. Foster talked about, from our FOIA requests to the State Department of Education, the proximity of those schools to our schools, and the available population from our schools that could enter into charter schools. And we recognize that not every student at a charter school is going to come from Richland too. They'll be coming from private schools as well as surrounding counties. But we do have to have a number that we start from. So the projections will continue to evolve throughout the spring and the budget cycle as new data and more information is shared. And just as a reminder, we really will not know our true enrollment numbers until the 10th day of school, which would be the 26-27 school years. So thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Mr. Anderson.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Moore, and thank you, board members, and happy National or School Board Appreciation Month. I know this meeting is an example of the very difficult things you guys have on your plate, so appreciate what all you guys have going on. As Dr. Moore stated, she's done an excellent job, as well as Dr. Foster, so I'm going to try to go through a lot of these quickly and then just get to the real point, and that's the projections. So real quickly, a lot of this you'll see from last time, and a lot Dr. Foster covered as well. Again, just to reiterate, public school enrollment's declining, primarily due to low birth rates and a lot of new choice options. And this is a situation involving the entire country. Some of our highly successful districts in the state, Greenville, for example, is also losing a lot of students. Again, as Dr. Moore mentioned, a lot of data goes into projecting enrollments. This information is synthesized and put together, and a lot of it really helps having historical data to help project that. As you can see, as a reminder, charter schools come in and we have no historical data. That makes your projections a little bit harder. Again, the methodologies that we use, our primary is cohort survival, and for everyone, just again, it's how many people will go from one grade to the next grade, from first to second, second to third, etc. And we use a student yield factor, which helps us predict how many students will come from either a new single-family home or an apartment complex. And you can see some of the information on your screen there, and we continue to monitor those numbers as well. Again, the variables that change that really throw some things in that we try to monitor. Birth rates declining, projecting kindergarten is difficult. So really have to monitor the birth rates for that. Our choice in and out, our new developments, and then those options. I do want to speak briefly to the information Dr. Foster shared with you. That is the information from the charter schools shared with the Department of Ed of what they project their enrollment to be. When we provide information, for example, to the Southland Department of Ed, when we open a new school, say Bethel Hanbury, a new school, or E.L. Wright or Forest Lake, we'll tell them what our capacity for the school would be. We don't open a new school at capacity. We try not to because we want to grow into that school. So again, that is what they're projecting. So that's why we'll see in a future slide, we've backed off of not 3,500 students we think coming from Richland to those charter schools. The new developments I mentioned earlier, and I showed this before, how we project the number of students. So right now, in the phases of construction, planned or going through a zoning change, there's upwards of almost 14,000 new homes. Quick math, if you 50% in a single family home is a 0.52 right now. That'll be about 7,000 students we can anticipate over the next several years based off these new developments. Now that is, again, the current methodology, but we have a lot more options and choice now, so we're still monitoring those. These are the location of the charter schools. This is important for various reasons. One is it helps us understand where our current students may go to these charter schools, as location's a big driver. Geography matters. It also helps understand what other factors may be in play, if it's socioeconomic, et cetera. So those are things that drive the enrollment to schools that are private or charter. And so we wanted to make sure you show those. You can see American Leadership's up in the northern part of our district is supposed to be a number 2. I'm sorry about that, guys. I just noticed that. And on with the number 2, which is right at Park Lane and Farrow Drive, and then Legacy, as Dr. Foster mentioned earlier. So I know it's a little small, but I've got my magic pointer again to help show. So projections, again, as Dr. Foster and Dr. Moore, were very difficult this year. I wish I was a weatherman because they don't seem to get fired when they miss projections. And I hope you guys will treat me like a weatherman this year. Another comment we had was
we were speaking in our room multiple times going over this, and I said, I feel good about this, and then I caught myself, and I said, I feel good about the methodology. I don't feel good about these numbers, because this is a big impact of the budget, as you can see. So I'll use this back screen again, and so you can see. So the first, and I'll show the public as well. So the first column or second column is our current K through 12 enrollment. That is the not pre-K, it's just using K through 12 because that's what affects the general fund budget. The pre-K numbers are set, they're based on some Title I federal funding, so we're just talking about K through 12 enrollment. So you can see our current. The next column is our projected enrollment based on current methodologies, does not take into effect charter schools. So you can see we projected our elementary to go up 85, middle to go down 57, high to go down 334. So without charter, that's what we project. Now, why are we going down so much at high school is the question. Well, if you may remember from a year or so ago, and I shared the demographic report from you in your last board meeting, we have a very high senior class, junior class matriculating out of the system being replaced with a smaller freshman class. We have a bubble, basically, a large bubble leaving and a smaller bubble in the middle right now going through. And so that bubble is matriculating through, which shows that. So that's just natural attrition. If we had stayed in where we were, we would continue to see this linear growth. But because of that bubble, that's why last year and this year coming up, we are decreasing enrollment. Compound that with the choice options, it makes it even more substantial. So that's where that comes from. The next column is K-12 charter impact. So we're projecting 1,186 students based on charters. Now, how do we come up with that? I mentioned that last time a little bit. So we took into the location of the current school to the charter school, the closest one. We took in the demographic data, socioeconomic in particular, of the areas and the schools that attend those areas. We took in historical choice in and choice out rates for the current schools. So for example, we're looking at, say, Joseph Keels Elementary being close to a cent. How many kids typically choice in or how many typically kids choice out of that zone? That helps kind of give us an idea how many kids may decide, I'm going to leave this zone and go to this charter school. And so we took all those factors to come up with that we called a charter school generation rate. And again, we used information from Lexington, from other districts who've gone through this to get an understanding of what the impact's been on there. So again, not an exact science, by no means, but we've tried our very best to come up with a number so you can see what that is. And so when you add all those together, you have a decrease of almost 1,500 students, 1,492, which our K through 12 projection would be 25,816 students. Now for allocation purposes, the last two columns, SPED, highly specialized, Blythewood Academy, and virtual school, those are the projections of how many students will be in a self-contained classroom, how many students we anticipate throughout the year doing a virtual school and Blythewood Academy. This is numbers from our special education department and our historical numbers for Blythewood Academy and virtual. So while funding will be for 25,816, from a staffing perspective, the ratios, those students are being served in another location or format and are different from the funding. That's Ms. Williams and Dr. Foster can help answer those questions, but I wanted to show that on the slide. And I can come back to this for questions in a little bit. So this is what we've been doing, the data collection period. I mean, even this past month, we've been riding in neighborhoods, looking, Manny and Grant have been riding in neighborhoods, looking around. And so you can see what's coming up next. Oops, wrong one. And so we've done the completed enrollment projections for all schools. As Dr. Foster mentioned, we are working with HR, finance, and the schools on taking the models, plugging the data in, coming up with the staffing allocations. Then we'll come back and share that information with the board and the schools, use this information to form our budget, and then implement based on that. With that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Moore, and myself and Mr. Hutton will happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So board members, this is the first time we've said this number out loud. I know people in the public are listening, but as you can see, the enrollment reduction is 1,492. Now, I would like people to keep in mind that as we move forward, it's important to keep in mind that the right sizing of staffing is critical, as we discussed around the funding model when Dr. Foster presented his brilliant elementary school. Now, even with this reduction, our current plan preserves employees' investments, including a step increase, a teacher salary increase, and a cost of living adjustment. But if enrollment declines beyond 1,492 students, the district can still absorb the impact by reducing expenditures by up to $25 million. So we still need to reduce to the $25 million. There's no way for us to get around that, right? It is important to note that district level reductions were already made last year, and this proposal builds on those actions rather than delaying difficult decisions. We are looking at the entire district, not just schools, but everybody, every position in our district, including the district office. The figures that we've shared are data-driven and fiscally responsible, reflecting both current realities and forward-looking financial planning. So while the approach may be complex and difficult to understand at first, it is designed to protect the long-term financial health and stability of our district. This plan balances student enrollment trends, staff compensation, and operational sustainability to ensure the district remains strong moving forward. And with that, we will open it up for any questions that the board may have.
Board members, any questions?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Dennis?
I just want to say thank you all very much for everything you do, because in my line of work, I'm looking at the same numbers you guys kind of looking at. So riding around and finding those numbers is not easy. So there's a lot of hard work, and thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so we're going to now move to item 9.3, academic report, special education. This agenda item is the section in which we're going to get an academic report on special education. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to say, as the academic department continues to support our schools by creating the exceptional learning environment and experiences for our students, that we have made significant progress with our special education department. As the board is aware, and we are grateful for the positions that the board approved, we had some challenges that we have faced in our special education department, and we are just very excited to come tonight and share with you where we're at and some of the work that the department and the district has been doing. One of the reasons we're giving this presentation tonight, which is very important, is that, as you are aware, we have 14 Richland 2 schools that received the federal ATSI disabled designation for the 2026-2028 cycle, and one school received a CSI disabled designation. Now, these designations are federal and focus specifically on subgroups like students with disabilities. And I know we shared this with the board, but our student with disability population has been growing significantly over the last 3 years. And so we appreciate, once again, what the board has done as far as funding additional support to help address that. So what Ms. McLaughlin and our senior chief, Jen Morrison, will be presenting tonight is Richland 2's compliance system and how it will help the district provide the needed support for all of our schools to address and remove these designations from our schools. And with that, I will turn it over to Jen Morrison.
Thank you, Dr. Moore, and happy recognition to our board members. I'm going to talk fast because Shaquina needs all her time. And so I'm going to say that our focus remains on each and every child in our schools, and that includes our special education students. It is important to note, however, that 400 schools across the state received a federal ATSI designation for students with disabilities. So we're not alone in this concern and work, and we had success in the last cycle. We had a number of schools that we were able to remove from ATSI, which means that we know how to do it. And so the compliance system, Ms. McLaughlin is bringing to you, has documented success in her previous district, and we know that it works, but building it is going to take some time. We know that the board has a justified interest in the growth and success of our special education students. This, of course, is shown in your board strategic plan alignment document that we have looked through very, very carefully. And so please know that Ms. McLaughlin will be part of the academics board committee meeting tomorrow with our committee leaders, Ms. Porter and Ms. Williams. So further discussion can certainly be had at that time. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Ms. McLaughlin.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for starting my 8 minutes over. I told Jen, watch it. So thank you. Tonight's update provides a comprehensive look at our special education systems, our compliance progress, and our strategic approach to closing the achievement gaps. This presentation responds directly to the priorities that were identified in the board and strategic plan alignment report. Yes, I read it, and demonstrates our commitment to transparency and accountability. So the board and strategic plan alignment report identified that there were achievement gaps in special education. That's one of our most urgent improvement areas. So tonight's update is going to show you how we're building the systems to address those gaps through strengthened compliance, improved instruction, and expanded inclusive practices. Everything that we're doing is intentional, measurable, and aligned to the strategic priorities that we have. So we're going to start with our ABC framework. As I shared in August, our work is guided by 3 interconnected areas. Accountability is ensuring that we have quality programs and support. Building relationships is partnering with our families, our staff, and our community. And compliance is meeting those legal requirements so that students receive services. But these are not separate. They all work together. Compliance ensures access. Accountability drives quality, and relationships sustain the work. Oh, thank you. Okay. So when people hear compliance, a lot of times they think that it's just paperwork and deadlines. And so I wanted to make note that all these areas that are listed on the slide are examples of different types of compliance areas. And it's important that we address them all. Okay, so when compliance really is about creating systems that ensure that every child gets what they're legally entitled to. It's the right services at the right time with the right support. And we want to ensure that each of these areas is strong. That's why we're building a compliance system. So it's important to note here that there are 2 different state accountability measures when we look at compliance. So the state looks at us kind of through 2 lenses. One is, are we following the rules? That's our LEA determination. And then are students making progress? That's our indicators. Okay, so 2 different ways. We have to excel at both. So while we're currently meeting the overall IDEA requirements, we do have specific areas for growth and fiscal management, timelines, and student achievement. In addition to the state accountability measures, we're going to implement our own internal system to ensure compliance is proactive and not reactive. This spring and going into next year, we're going to launch a 3-tiered auditing system for IEPs. Not all teachers and not all schools need the same level of support, so we need to differentiate that support. So this is not about catching mistakes, and it's important that we know that. This is about building capacity, right? We have to develop a system so that somebody else isn't telling us what we do wrong, but we are recognizing what we're doing wrong, and we're working on strategies to improve it. So by having our own internal system, we're not going to wait for people to tell us. We're going to identify our issues early. We're going to provide support to teachers and schools immediately, and we're going to build a culture of continuous improvement. So we're also tracking our progress through multiple sources. So we're looking at state data, we're looking at internal audits, we're listening to our stakeholders, providing feedback, and we're now going to be using real-time monitoring systems. It is important to note that the LEA determination, which what I reported on at the beginning of the year, is a year behind. Okay, so when we get that report, it is from the previous year, with our most recent results being from the 23-24 school year. So we use our indicators to provide us with the much more recent data so that we can make the necessary adjustments that we need to make. Okay, in August, I spoke about priorities to move us forward. We said that we were going to build systems, not just check boxes. Tonight, I want to show you exactly what we've accomplished in the first semester and what's ahead. Remember, this is about moving from planning to action, okay? Last semester was about building a strong foundation. So these are all the things that we did this past semester. We clarified who does what, we figured out why that mattered, and we talked about how we were going to sustain it. We hired key positions, we trained staff, we visited classrooms to understand needs, and we began refining the procedures that's going to guide our work. This foundation ensures that compliance becomes part of our culture and not just that checklist that I talked about. So then moving forward to spring and beyond, this semester is about implementation and monitoring. We're launching our tiered auditing system. We're strengthening instruction through co-teaching and coaching, and we're building the data systems that will allow us to track our progress in real time. This is where the planning becomes action. So we're on a 3-year journey to build systems that are going to last. Year 1 is about foundation. That's getting the right people, structures, and processes in place. Year 2 is about scaling what works and implementing. And year 3 is about sustainability, making this our new normal so that by 2028, compliance will be completely embedded in how we operate. Okay, Dr. Moore and Ms. Morrison talked about ATSI designations, but I do want to note that ATSI and TSI designations are based on overall achievement, and it does not mean that students aren't learning, and it does not mean that teachers aren't working hard. Okay, those federal designations trigger additional resources and supports and helps us provide our students with the services that they need. We're going to make sure that those schools receive priority support, including expanding co-teaching, specialized coaching support for teachers, and ongoing data analysis. Everything that we're doing directly responds to our strategic priorities. Our compliance system, our update of procedures and processes, and our co-teaching expansion are all things that we're doing right now. At this time, we've reviewed all of our 22 board-related SPED policies. They align with our work. We're not recommending any changes at this time, but as we continue to look through and do the work, if we need changes, we will make sure that we go through the appropriate process. And I got 6 seconds. Okay, special education compliance is not an endpoint. Okay, it is a foundation. That's the key from this message today. We have to build a system. By strengthening our systems, by clarifying accountability, and supporting inclusive instruction, we're addressing the district's need. We're meeting the challenge head-on. We're going to develop our clear systems. We have dedicated staff, and we have an unwavering commitment to our students. The work matters, and accountability is important to us. Thank you for your continued support and oversight. I look forward to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Board members, as you can see, we have been working very hard to address this area that the board has set a goal for. And I want to just remind the public once again, when we talk about compliance with our special education students, it is all or nothing. We could have 90% of the things in place and doing a great job, but that 10% will keep us out of being compliant. Our goal is to ensure that every student, each student in our district, no matter what that student brings with them, if they have a disability or not, is receiving an excellent education every single day. So the work that Ms. McLaughlin is doing is extremely important. And as you heard from Dr. Foster and Mr. Anderson, when we're looking at that 1,400 number, we are not looking at SPED, because that area is one that we have to meet federal and state compliance requirements. So we are not looking at them as a part of the reduction, but as a part of what do they need to ensure that each student receives what they're entitled to. So at that, we'll open it up for questions, Madam Chair.
Well, I just want to start by saying, you said my favorite words, pass, proactive action and systems. All right, board members, do you have any questions? Very good job. Board members? Ms. Porter?
I just want to encourage my colleagues to share any policies that you have already been looking into for review for SPED. As Dr. Morrison mentioned, that the academic committee will be meeting, and we want to be able to present policies to Ms. Washington as soon as possible. So if there are any policies or concerns that you have, please share them with either myself or Ms. Williams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Williams?
I'm commenting tonight. But again, just thank you all for hearing the call, seeing the need, wanting to close the gap, and making the work happen. Just from an experience of being able to hire the people that was needed and whatnot, it's more efficient now in that process of going through the steps. So, and I've heard it reduces the workload for some of the teachers that are out there. So again, thank you again for seeing the need and making the corrections that were needed, or not corrections, but improvements.
Okay, thank you so much. We give you a standing ovation. I mean, you killed it. All right. Great job. Thank y'all. All right. Okay. So, unless you could turn off the mic, unless you want to do a rap for us. No? Okay. All right. Moving on to item 10.0, agenda items for the next meeting. Let's take a look at that draft agenda for February 10th. What? Is that right? February 10th, 2026. Regular scheduled board meeting, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, February 10th is our next regularly scheduled board meeting with the call to order at 5:30 p.m., followed by the welcome and pledge of allegiance. We will then move to the approval of the agenda, followed by executive session. In executive session, the board will discuss student appeals, student admission requests into the district's adult education program, employment recommendations, and certified releases. We will release back to public session at 6:30 p.m., where we will start with the inspirational moment, followed by the consent agenda, which will include approval of the consent agenda, approval of minutes from previous meetings, and classified employment releases and in-district transfers. We will then move to public participation, followed by voting on executive session items, which would include student appeals, student admission requests into the district's adult education program, employment recommendations and certified releases, and as needed for items discussed in executive session. The board will then move to unfinished business, no action requested. The board will review policy revision proposal for policy BE, board meetings, and strategic resource alignment update. The board will then receive a report from the superintendent, including remaining competitive, followed by agenda items for the next meeting, which would be the draft agenda for the February 24th, 2026 board meeting. We'll then have our, if needed, items of public participation, executive session, voting on executive session, and then conclude with board and superintendent comments and adjournment.
Okay, board members, do you have any revisions or additions you would like to see to this agenda or the next future agenda? There is space, of course. I know that our committees are hard at work right now, so if any committee decides they want to go ahead and give an update, for that meeting or a future meeting, of course, let us know, and then we will just add that as well. But does anybody have anything that they currently want to add right now? Of course, you can always email it if you do think of something. Okay, all right. Well, I think we have adjournment, but we have a weather update. Dr. Moore.
Well, thank you for a point of privilege, Madam Chair. I just want to give the board two updates on two things that are coming up and that I think are very important. So as the board is aware, and our teachers, staff, and students and parents and community members, we operated on an e-learning day yesterday because of the weather. So just so everybody is aware, we closely monitor weather conditions all the time. Our facility team went out yesterday across the district and they checked every one of our facilities, to include Ridgeview High School, which was opened over this last weather incident as a warming center to support our community. And while the American Red Cross reports that no guests were served, the facility was available, and should it have been needed, it was there. Now, as we look forward, we continue to monitor the potential for additional wintry weather this weekend. We want our parents, students, teachers, and staff to know that safety remains our top priority, and we will keep our community informed of any changes. In the meantime, we encourage families to visit our website to learn more about how we make weather-related decisions, because we don't make these decisions willy-nilly. It's a very detailed process that we use. I want to also remind parents that it's going to be extremely cold this week, so please have your children layer their clothes so that they are staying warm at the bus stop. And when they get to school, they can remove some of those layers when they're in the classroom, a nice warm classroom, but we want them to be prepared. The other thing I just wanted to remind people of, because it's a very special time for us in our district, is on Thursday, we will kick off Richland 2's centennial celebration at the Little Red Schoolhouse on the campus of Killian Elementary School, along with the grand opening of the Richland 2 Museum. We are turning 100 years old. And I know you're thinking we only look a day over 30, but we are actually going to be 100 years old. So we want to invite everybody from the community, everybody along to come in and be a part of this once-in-a-lifetime celebration of learning, legacy, and leadership. The program on Thursday will begin at 10 a.m. and the museum will be open to visitors through 6 p.m. Inside, guests will see artifacts, some never seen before, on display, and we will tell the story of how this district known as Richland School District 2 was born. It is going to be a truly special opportunity to reflect on our past and celebrate how far we come. And I want to say a very special thank you to Ms. Teresa Riley, who's in the audience today, because she led the committee that has done this work. And boy, I'm telling you, they're a committee. When I went in there to see them one time for 10 minutes, it was supposed to be a pop-in, they kept me in there for 35 minutes with requests. And so she has done a phenomenal job. So thank you, Teresa, for what you do every single day. And I cannot end this meeting without once again saying thank you to our Board of Trustees. January is Board Appreciation Month, but what you do every single day for our students goes beyond 1 month, and we cannot say thank you enough. So thank you once again to our Board of Trustees. You are my battle buddies, and I appreciate what you do every single day. Thank you.
All right, board members. What am I supposed, what is it? There's. Seeing that we have no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Oh. Good night, everybody.